only show that's 3 dimensions away from Sonic the Hedgehog not having an ugly face in the official first trailer. I'm your host, 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Sonic the Hedgehog, released in 2020. Sonic the Hedgehog is a 2020 movie that is directed by Jeff Fowler and is written by Pat Casey and Josh Miller. And the movie stars James Marsden, Taika Sumpson, Lee Maduro, Natasha Rothwell, Adam Pally, Ben Schwartz, and Jim Carrey. The movie is essentially a movie about a hedgehog from another being of a plane of dimension who basically chases after gold rings, and then he ends up using the gold rings and comes to this world, and he basically loses all of his rings, and so he has to go find them. And of course, Jim Carrey, because his gold rings end up in San Francisco, and so he has to go find the gold rings in San Francisco. And so he comes across Donut Lord, which is played by James Marsden, who is essentially a cop who was trying to transfer to a big city because he's tired of being a big little city cop and wants more action in his life. It's just boring there. So him and his wife are going to move to San Francisco, where his wife's sister already lives. And then, of course, what happens is he runs into Sonic, and then, of course, Sonic causes a big, power shutdown and everything. And Jim Carrey, who is Dr. Robotnik, who is essentially a crazy scientist who basically wants to capture Sonic and do experiments on him and stuff. The movie is a great movie. Like, this is one of the fun movies. I love this movie so much. Like, I love the first Sonic movie because it is, it's a buddy road trip comedy, but at the same time, it's so good. Like, Jim Carrey is so great in this movie. I love Jim Carrey. I love James Marsden in this movie because, James Marsden doesn't get enough love when it comes to leading men roles. Like, he always feel like he gets the side end of the stick. Even in the X-Men movies, when he played Cyclops, I feel like he got the short end of the stick on that role. And even in Superman Returns, he was just like the boyfriend, the husband who is kind of, is like always kind of like, oh, you kind of you're rooting for against him because you want Lois to get with Superman, even though he's a really nice guy and he doesn't show any hostility towards Lois or Superman or even Clark. And just like, and I always feel like every movie he does, even in Enchanted, he doesn't get the girl. It's Patrick Dempsey that gets the girl. And so every time you watch him in movies, he's always getting the short end of the stick, and I just like, what? I wish for one time he'd get a good role that's not the short end of the stick. And I feel like this is the first role, really, where he's not given the short end of the stick, because this is a movie you could take your kids to see. It is a great franchise of a movie, and it's already on the fourth movie, with the third movie, technically, and then the fourth movie's coming out. But it's even got a spin-off movie called Knuckles, or a TV show called Knuckles. Which I have not finished yet, which one day I will finish, because I heard, like, it's kind of really cheesy and shitty. So, like, the first episode, I couldn't finish it because I'm like, this is terrible. But, like, I love the two Sonic movies. I haven't seen the third one yet, but I'm hoping to like it just as much as I like the first two. I love the first one, and the second one I really enjoyed, even though I feel like I enjoyed this one more because I just feel like I love it because James Marsden was mostly off at a wedding. Like, the sequel felt more like Alvin the Chipmunks 2, where it's like, okay, something happens to Dave where, like, Dave's off and the Chipmunks are on their own. I feel like that kind of situation happened with the second one, where this one is kind of like, okay, you have, James Marsden, who's a serious cop, who's kind of like Dave and Alvin the Chipmunks, and you have Sonic, who is just doing all crazy. Like, they go to a bar and, get into a bar fight and everything, and I thought that was really great. And I honestly think this is a much better speedster movie than the Flash movie that came out in 2023. I think this is a much better and enjoyable movie. It has a better villain, a better plot, and it actually makes sense. And in Sonic, it doesn't come off as annoying. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed this aspect. I think Jim Carrey really nails the villain Robotnik really well. Like, I know he's, becomes Eggman, and I think really, I'm not a big Sonic lore guy, so I don't really know much. Like, I'm kind of a casual Sonic fan, where I just enjoy the movies. I've never really played the Sonic game. I have not, never really looked at the lore. And I know my sister is, but I've not been. So I just like to enjoy these as movies. I don't really have no intention of really watching. I know there's a cartoon out there of Sonic, and I know there's the game, and the lore kind of explains more of what happened with these characters. But I'm just like, I enjoy these as movies. And I really like how Jim Carrey, and I know he's supposed to be like huge, fat, and and he's supposed to have like he's more game accurate in the sequel, even though he's not And I look, I like it. I enjoy this movie a lot. I really think, like, I like how it does feel like it's a fun movie where you don't have to. It's not trying to, like, it doesn't feel like it's trying to piss off game fans, and it's not trying to, have a message or anything. It's just, a fun movie about Sonic the Hedgehog, going on an adventure with this cop played by James Marsden, and of course, and then yeah, Jim Carrey is after them, and I know this movie did have controversy when the trailer first dropped, because the first trailer they had a design for Sonic where he had teeth and they called it Ugly Sonic, and yeah, it's in the trailer. By I used this for the first teaser trailer, so that's why you're probably seeing Ugly Sonic in the trailer. So yeah, because I feel like that's part of history, so you got to kind of respect the history. Yeah, even though I know that Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers, the movie, made fun of Ugly Sonic, and I rightfully so. I mean, I'm glad that this is one time. There's like a couple of times I feel like where the internet actually spoke up and was in the right, where it's like, yeah, this is wrong. You need to fix this. And I 100% stand by it, because that trailer, like, I would have still saw the movie, and I'm glad that they pushed it from November to February of 2020. Thank God they didn't push it any further, because you know what happens in March of 2020. Ooh. So I'm glad, like, they got to make their bank before the pandemic happened. So they're like, well, because if they would have made it in April, they would not. We probably wouldn't have got Sonic 2. I'm just saying. If they would have put set that release date for April, we would not have probably gotten Sonic 2. I'm just saying. We probably would have been like, yeah, well, that sucks, But I did take my nieces. I took my niece to see this movie in 2020, February, and we both enjoyed this movie so much. We were like, I was not expecting much, because I'm not a big Sonic fan. Like, I like the trailers. And so I love Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey was the main selling point for me, because I'm like, he hasn't really made a comedy in years, and he's had this weird thing in his life with, like, he's had this weird issues in his life and personal life, and that's his business. But I really respect that he's coming back and he's making movies that that are more catering to families and everything, like, because I think the last family Jim Carrey movie had, I think, was probably Horton Hears a Who. And so it's really nice to see him coming back and making movies like this. I really enjoy, like, him as a villain, especially there's, like, he has a dance number where he's like evil, like, we're playing Evil Nose, and I thought that was really fun. He has, like, he loves his lattes with goat's milk. He's like, I love it when you make them. He's just really great and being very Jim Carrey. And there's even a moment where like James Marsden is saying, like, he says, my name's Tom, but my dentist calls me Tim. But I've known him for a while now. It's just too awkward to say. And then he goes, well, Tom, whose dentist calls him Tim. Like, I just love that moment, because it's just so Jim Carrey-esque moment that is included. I love how the banter between him and James Marsden, it really works well. And I liked Ben Schwartz's voice of Sonic. I really thought that was great, because Ben Schwartz is a really good voice actor of Sonic, and I'm glad that they chose him, because he's so fun, and every time now I see Sonic, I just think of Ben Schwartz's voice, and I like that they kept him around for the sequels and everything else, so it's really cool to have him. The actress that plays his wife, she was, I believe, in the Ride Along movies. I really enjoyed her in this movie. I think she was really good. She wasn't like this, she kind of more is like just a tag-along woman. Like, she, like, in the third act, really, because she really doesn't really have, she's at the beginning, then she goes to see her sister, and at the end, she tags along, and, they face at the end, which I thought, there's some really, funny moments in the movie, like, especially when they're at the bar and Sonic, destroys the bar, or there's a scene where, basically, Sonic, at the end, when they're throwing the ring, he throws them, and Jim Carrey looks over and goes, well, I was not expecting that. But then again, I wasn't really expecting anything. So then, or the scene where Jim Carrey's just like, falling to his death. He's like, and his face is just scary, screaming for his dear life. Stuff like that is what I really enjoyed and everything. And, Jim Carrey's it up a lot and everything. And so I really enjoyed this movie a lot. It's a fun movie. I really like this, that it's the idea of it being like this, and they give some lore at the beginning of the movie, but not too much lore to where it's like you have to sit there and do a lot of exposition. And this is just a fun, turn your brain off movie, and it's a really good movie too. Like, I just enjoy watching it, and also that you have the Jim Carrey aspect of him being a fun villain, and then you have the aspect of James Marsden being like the no nonsense kind of cop that the father figure to Sonic, and Sonic just being this guy who literally just wants to he's kind of like a kid inside that is just runs around and speeds and almost sees him like a superhero in a way. And I really enjoy this aspect, and if I had to give this movie a grade, I would give it a solid A-. Thank you so much.
Stay in there and be quiet. How much longer? I can't breathe in here.
Do you have your child in that bag?
No. I mean, yes, it's a child, but it's not mine.
It's not your child.
Smells like body spray in an old ham sandwich.